My husband has been acting really strange lately. He seems to know he's just a tragic male supporting character. And he's completely given up. When the female lead came begging for help, he said too much AC makes you sick. Minding too much business kills you. When the male lead came looking for him, he said, just pretend I'm dead. Everyone dies eventually anyway. But when it comes to our divorce, this guy is absolutely stubborn. Yeah, I changed my mind. I'm done pretending. Cards on the table, I'm not getting divorced. The female lead came to borrow money from my husband again. I just walked out of my room when I heard my husband's irritated voice. You only come to me when you need money. What? Don't you have your own family? Emma's voice was tearful. This time is different. Ryan hurt some. And they said if we can't pay up, they'll take him to jail. Take him to the morgue for all I care. Peter cut off her unfinished words. I can lend it to you. But first pay back the 200 grand you already owe me. Emma's voice was filled with disbelief. You're so rich. And you want me to pay back just 200,000? Oh wow. Your face is so thick. I bet you wouldn't even fight back if I slapped you twice. Right? After that, Emma was silent for a long while. Then I heard the door slam shut. Peter muttered, fine to fool me, but you want to fool my money too? How naive. As he turned around, Peter's eyes met mine directly. The man who'd been fierce as a guard dog 1 second suddenly smiled like a golden retriever. Honey, I just single-handedly protected our joint assets. Tell me I'm amazing. I was holding our divorce papers. The words I'd planned to say stuck in my throat. After a long pause, I managed. Amazing. I transmigrated into this novel just last month. My husband Peter is the biggest victim now. Wait. The most devoted male supporting character in the entire story. His nickname is Money Guy. The novel is a healing romance. The male lead Ryan is a good-for-nothing troublemaker. And the female lead Emma is an innocent, sunny girl. Early in the story, the male lead smokes, bites, and rebels constantly, while the female lead sticks by him through everything. Eventually, the female lead successfully guides the male lead to reform and become a business tycoon. And my husband is the ATM machine in this book. Despite his powerful family background, the author made him completely lovesick. Whenever the male lead gets in trouble, the female lead comes to borrow money from him. He pays all the bills while she gets all the credit for being good. He's had an unrequited crush for years, and when he returns, he's still the backup. That's not even enough. Even when the male lead starts his business, it's the female lead who begs Peter for angel investments. Later, when the male lead becomes successful, he actually blames Peter for meddling and grows to resent him. The story ends with the male lead taking over Peter's company. Peter goes bankrupt and leaves in despair. The male and female leads not only live happily ever after, but the story ends with them having triplets. As for me, I'm Peter's contract wife. Back then, when our naive female lead realized Peter's feelings for her, she cried and apologized, saying she only saw Peter as a brother and wanted to distance herself from him. Our devoted backup plan, wanting to ease the female lead's concerns so he could stay by her side, quickly found me as a contract wife and got married. Sure enough, Emma believed it, thinking Peter didn't like her anymore, and resumed contact with him. When I transmigrated here, the contract was just expiring. According to the original plot, after I take the money and leave, the story development has nothing to do with me. After all, I'm just a passerby who only appeared for 3 chapters in a 1,000,000-word novel. But I never expected that just as I was preparing for divorce, Peter's consciousness awakened. He seems to know he's a tragic supporting character, and has started giving up. He won't lend money anymore, and he won't get divorced either. The usually cold and distant air has even started cursing in his desperation. At night, just as I was about to fall asleep, the bedroom door suddenly opened. Peter stood in the doorway holding a small pillow looking pitiful. Honey, I can't sleep. Peter and I have always slept in separate beds. I don't know what's gotten into Peter this time. I tentatively replied, if you can't sleep, why don't you go run a couple laps outside? Without hesitation, Peter immediately responded, but I don't want to run laps outside. I want to run laps in your heart. This line made me completely speechless. Peter completely ignored my stunned expression. and climbed into my bed with his little pillow. I was shocked. You're not planning to sleep here, are you? Peter blinked innocently. You're not planning to kick me out, are you? Shouldn't I kick him out? We're a fake couple. Hearing my words, Peter immediately pulled a little red marriage certificate from his pajama pocket and flashed it in front of me. Who says so? This is legal. Then he laid down next to me and closed his eyes tightly. Okay, I'm already asleep. Me. Just as I was puzzled about what had caused Peter's personality change, I suddenly remembered this morning's scene where he refused to lend money to Emma. Wait, could this guy be reluctant to pay me the breakup fee? So he's deliberately not wanting to divorce. I am just a minor character. The original story didn't waste ink on me or write many details about my interactions with Peter. But after transmigrating, I inherited the original's memories. The original Lisa had been Peter's college classmate. Lisa had always had a crush on this senior. So when he proposed a fake marriage, Lisa agreed without hesitation. The girl naively dreamed of fake becoming real. However, over the next year, she faced endless cold violence and her husband's compliance with another woman's every request. Peter seems to have awakened now. Who knows if this isn't some new trick to attract the female lead? After all, those romance authors' thought processes are hard to predict. Thinking of this, I felt I should divorce quickly and completely separate from all key characters in the original story. Just as I couldn't find an opportunity to end the agreement, I saw Emma again. After work that day, the girl was crouched at my front door, was curled up looking pitiful and helpless. Hearing footsteps, her voice was tearful. Peter, you're finally back. Before finishing, she realized it was the wrong person. And her voice immediately dropped 8 octaves. Why is it you? This face-changing speed rivaled Peter's. I rolled my eyes. You're crouched at my door asking why it's me. If you have brain atrophy and can't find your way home, I can kindly help you. Call the police. This isn't your home, this is Peter's house. She stood up like an angry little beast. Did you say something to Peter that made him refuse to lend me money? That money is what Peter works hard to earn outside. What right do you have to interfere? Talk about trouble finding me while I'm just sitting at home. I'd never been questioned like this in my entire life. Oh, so you know, the money is what your Peter works hard to earn and has nothing to do with you? With Peter not around, I completely let loose. I wanted to scold you yesterday but held back. You should be thanking your lucky stars. But here you are actively coming to my door today. Even monkeys know to ride unicycles when begging for money. But you just bring your face and mouth. What? Do you think your face is worth more than a monkey's? Young and lazy? Just scheming to get something for nothing? And calling him Peter? Does your dad know you're out here calling everyone brother? Have you counted how many hats you've made your dad wear? You what? If you can't even speak clearly, go home and learn how before coming back to bed. Just then the elevator opened. Peter walked out. Emma saw him like a savior, tears streaming down her face. Peter, you have to stand up for me. I turned and met the man's unreadable gaze. I wondered how much of that conversation he'd heard. My heart sank. The original Lisa was gentle, shy, timid, and cowardly. That was the main reason Peter chose her as his contract wife back then. I was worried about my character collapsing. So after arriving, I was especially careful with my words and actions. Afraid Peter would notice something off. Today probably ruined everything. But I quickly calmed down. I didn't want to live this life anyway. Whatever happens, happens. But I never expected Peter to open with sarcasm. You want me to be judge and jury? I'm exhausted from work all day. And after work I have to mediate for you? How much overtime pay are you giving me to boss me around like this? Then he pulled me behind him. His voice gentle. You weren't bullied, were you? Emma was the one crying. But I was the one he asked. Hearing this, Emma broke down even more. Peter, she insulted me. What insult? My wife was just stating facts. Then he pulled out his phone. Someone's trying to rob money at my door. My wife is about to be scared to tears. What are you security guards doing letting just anyone in? Get over here and remove this person. Peter's face darkened. I'm petty and vindictive. If you harass my family again, don't blame me for being rude. Emma froze as 2 security guards hurried out of the elevator. Miss, please leave. She looked at Peter in disbelief, tears hanging on her lashes. You're really doing this to me? Peter didn't even spare her a glance. He was busy checking my face like I'd just survived a natural disaster. My wife gets startled easily. he said seriously. What if her blood pressure spikes? I almost choked. The security guards awkwardly escorted Emma away, while she kept turning back toward Peter. Fine. Don't regret this later. The elevator doors closed. Silence returned to the hallway. Then Peter immediately lowered his head and whispered to me, "Honey, did I look cool just now?" I stared at him. This man, this supposedly cold, aloof tragic second male lead, was now wagging his tail so hard it was practically visible. Moderately cool. Peter looked delighted from receiving even that tiny bit of praise. The moment we entered the apartment, he carefully handed me a small paper bag. "I bought you cake." I looked inside. It was from the dessert shop Lisa used to love in college. "You remembered?" Peter paused. Then he muttered quietly, "I remembered everything." For a second, his usual joking expression disappeared. His eyes lowered slightly, including all the times I acted like garbage. The atmosphere suddenly became strange. I hadn't expected him to say that. In the original memories, Lisa really had spent years chasing after him carefully and quietly. Whenever he had a fever, she delivered medicine. Whenever he worked late, she waited with food. Even after marriage, she never complained when he ignored anniversaries, forgot birthdays, or rushed away because of Emma's phone calls. And in return, Peter gave her exactly two things: money and emotional neglect. Seeing me silent, Peter suddenly became flustered. I'm not asking you to forgive me immediately," he said quickly. "I just suddenly realized I was kind of an idiot before." Kind of. Very. I sat on the sofa while Peter awkwardly stood nearby like a student waiting for discipline. Finally, I asked the question that had been bothering me. "When exactly did you awaken?" Peter's expression stiffened slightly. "A week ago." "1 week." He nodded. At first I thought I was hallucinating. Suddenly I knew everything that would happen in the future. His voice became colder. "I saw myself throwing money at Ryan for years. Saw Emma using me whenever convenient. Saw my company destroyed." Then he laughed self-deprecatingly. "And the funniest part? After losing everything, I still thought Emma was a good person." I didn't know what to say. Because honestly, original Peter really was hopeless. Peter sat down across from me. When I realized all that, the first thing I thought about wasn't Emma. It was you. I looked up. "You were only in my life for a short time in the story," he said softly. "After the divorce, you disappeared completely. But after awakening, I suddenly remembered things that story never mentioned. The way you'd leave soup outside my study when I worked late. The way you secretly changed the coffee beans because my stomach was bad. The way you pretended not to care every time I left because Emma called." Each sentence made the room quieter. Peter rubbed his face tiredly. I treated someone who genuinely cared about me like furniture. Then he looked at me carefully. "So now I want to fix it." I crossed my arms. "And your method is acting like a golden retriever with a personality disorder?" Peter coughed. "I'm improvising." I almost laughed. Almost. But before I could speak, Peter's phone suddenly rang. The caller ID displayed one name: Ryan. Peter's face instantly became expressionless. He picked up on speaker. Ryan's impatient voice exploded through the phone. "Peter, what the hell is wrong with you lately? Emma cried for an hour because of you." Peter leaned back lazily. "Then tell her to drink water. People dehydrate after crying." "You." "And another thing," Peter interrupted. "If you can't pay back loan sharks, maybe stop pretending you're some rebellious movie protagonist." Ryan was furious. "Aren't we brothers?" Peter answered calmly. "No. Brothers don't treat each other like ATMs." The line went silent for 2 seconds. Then Ryan sneered. "You think you're better than me just because your family has money?" Peter's smile vanished. "You know what's interesting? In the past, I really did think I owed you something. But now I've figured it out. You're just a jobless delinquent with anger issues and plot armor." I nearly inhaled my own saliva. He really knew he was in a novel. Ryan exploded. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Peter looked completely done with life. "Anyway, from today onward, don't contact me unless you're dead." Then he paused thoughtfully. Actually, never mind. If you're dead, contact the funeral home instead. Click. He hung up. The room fell silent again. I slowly turned toward him. You've become really vicious. Peter leaned his chin onto the sofa and sighed. I used to be the devoted supporting male lead. Now I'm the bitter ex-investor villain. Then he looked at me hopefully. But villains who protect their wives are still pretty handsome, right? The next morning, I was woken up by a loud knocking sound. Bang, bang, bang. It sounded like someone wanted to tear the door off its hinges. Half asleep, I opened my bedroom door and saw Peter already standing in the living room wearing black silk pajamas and an expression full of murderous intent. His hair was messy. His face was dark. His resentment level was visibly maxed out. The knocking continued. Peter opened the door with the aura of someone ready to commit a crime. Outside stood Ryan. Behind him were two men covered in tattoos. And Emma, anxiously clutching his arm. The moment Ryan saw Peter, he immediately spoke arrogantly. Peter, lend me $3 million. Peter looked at him blankly, then slowly turned his head toward me. Honey, yes. Did I open the door wrong? Before I could answer, Ryan already frowned impatiently. I'm serious. One of the tattooed men sneered. Your friend owes us money. Peter corrected him immediately. Not my friend. Then he looked at Ryan. And $3 million? Why don't you just rob a bank directly? Less steps involved. Ryan's face darkened. Are you really refusing to help me? Emma quickly stepped forward, tears already forming. Peter, Ryan didn't mean it like that. We're really desperate this time. Peter looked genuinely confused. Then why are you dressed like you're filming a youth romance drama? Ryan instantly exploded. What's your problem lately? My problem. Peter laughed coldly. My problem is suddenly realizing I spent years financially supporting two unemployed people in love. Emma's face turned pale. Ryan clenched his fists. You think money makes you superior? Peter nodded honestly. In certain situations? Tremendously. I almost laughed out loud. The tattooed men looked impatient. One of them stepped forward. So are you paying or not? Peter looked him up and down calmly, then reached behind him. Ryan immediately looked relieved. But instead of taking out a bank card, Peter pulled out his phone. Hello, police. There are organized criminals at my front door threatening me. The tattooed men's expressions changed instantly. Who the hell are you calling criminals? Peter looked offended. You arrived in a group wearing matching leather jackets demanding $3 million. What am I supposed to call you? A choir? Ryan panicked. Peter. Hang up. Too late. Peter had already reported the apartment number. The tattooed men cursed and immediately ran for the elevator. Ryan's face turned green. You actually called the police? Peter looked at him strangely. What did you expect? Financial aid? Emma burst into tears again. Peter, how can you treat us like this after all these years? Peter suddenly went quiet. For a moment nobody spoke. Then he looked at Emma with exhausted eyes. You know what I finally realized? You never actually cared whether I was happy or not. Emma froze. You only cared whether I was useful. Her lips trembled slightly. That's not true. Peter gave a small laugh. Really? When I had a fever and was hospitalized, you spent the night accompanying Ryan because he lost a motorcycle race. When my company nearly collapsed from overwork, you called asking me to help Ryan pay damages after he punched someone. You remember the day of my grandfather's funeral? Emma's face went white. Peter smiled faintly. You borrowed money from me that day too. The hallway became deathly silent. Even Ryan stopped talking. Peter's voice remained calm. That was the moment I should have understood. I was never your priority. Emma's tears finally started falling for real now. Not the fake dramatic crying from before. This time she genuinely looked shaken. Peter. But Peter had already lost interest. He turned around and closed the door directly in their faces. Click. Silence. Then he leaned against the door heavily and covered his eyes with one hand. For the first time since awakening, he looked genuinely tired. Not sarcastic. Not bitter. Just exhausted. I stood there awkwardly for 2 seconds before handing him a glass of water. Peter accepted it quietly. After a while he suddenly asked softly, "Was I really pathetic before?" I considered the question carefully. "Do you want the honest version or the gentle version?" Peter sighed. "The honest version. You were basically a human wallet with abandonment issues." Peter closed his eyes painfully. "Fair." Then he looked at me. "But I'm improving, right?" I glanced toward the front door. "You called the police instead of paying $3 million. A huge improvement." Peter immediately looked pleased, like a dog receiving praise from its owner. Then he paused. "Can I get a reward?" "What reward?" He pointed at my coffee cup. "Your coffee tastes better than mine." I stared at him for 3 seconds, then handed it over silently. Peter looked absurdly happy just holding the cup. Honestly, this man was way too easy to please for someone who used to be the terrifying cold CEO's second male lead. A few days later, the apartment became unusually peaceful. No crying phone calls. No sudden visits. No dramatic borrowing money. Peter looked like a man who had finally escaped a pyramid scheme. Every day after work, he came straight home. Sometimes he cooked. Sometimes he sat beside me watching terrible television dramas while muttering things like, "That supporting male lead is about to ruin his life," with the weary wisdom of someone who'd already lived it once. And strangely enough, without Peter constantly cleaning up their disasters, Ryan and Emma's relationship started collapsing at terrifying speed. It began with the rent. Ryan had never held a stable job for longer than 2 weeks. In the original story, whenever he ran out of money, Emma would subconsciously rely on Peter, and Peter would solve everything before their relationship could truly crack under pressure. But now, there was no emergency ATM machine waiting behind the scenes, so the problems finally stayed problems. One night, Emma called Peter 37 times. Peter looked at the screen and calmly switched his phone to airplane mode. Then he continued peeling an apple for me. I watched him silently. "Aren't you curious what happened?" Peter handed me the sliced apple. "Not really." Then he paused. "Actually, I already know." In the original plot, this was around the time Ryan started gambling on underground racing again. Sure enough, the next day, gossip exploded online. Ryan had crashed someone else's motorcycle during an illegal race and couldn't afford the compensation. The victim had publicly exposed him. Comments flooded the post instantly. "Isn't this guy always causing trouble? His girlfriend keeps defending him like he's misunderstood." Misunderstood my ass, he's unemployed and violent. The real issue is that he never faces consequences. I suddenly realized something. Without Peter sacrificing himself in the background, Ryan's tragic rebellious male lead, Aura, completely disappeared. All that remained was a reckless man with no sense of responsibility. 3 days later, Emma came to find me alone. Not Peter. Me. She looked exhausted. Her makeup was messy. The bright, innocent energy she once relied on was almost gone. The moment she sat down, she asked quietly, "Did Peter say something to you before?" "What?" "About me and Ryan." I stirred my coffee slowly. "Why ask me that?" Emma lowered her head. "Because Ryan's become different." I nearly laughed. Different? No. He was always like that. The only difference was that before, Peter shielded them from reality. Emma spoke softly. "He gets angry constantly now. If I ask about money, he says I'm pressuring him. If I cry, he says I'm annoying. He even asked why I can't be more understanding." Her voice trembled slightly. "But I've already sacrificed so much for him." There it was. The core of their relationship. Emma always believed she was the savior, the devoted healing female lead. She endured Ryan's bad temper, violence, recklessness, and instability because the story promised she would eventually be rewarded with his transformation. But reality was cruel. A person doesn't magically improve because someone loves them enough. And without Peter financing every crisis behind the scenes, Ryan no longer had room to play the romantic misunderstood rebel. Stress revealed character faster than love ever could. I looked at Emma calmly. "Have you ever wondered why your relationship worked before?" Emma froze. Then her expression slowly changed. "Because deep down, She already knew. Peter had been paying their rent. Peter had covered Ryan's debts. Peter had funded his opportunities. Peter had softened every consequence. Their beautiful love story had always depended on a third person bleeding quietly in the background. Emma's face turned paler and paler. At that moment, her phone suddenly rang. Ryan. The second she answered, furious shouting exploded from the speaker loudly enough for me to hear. Where the hell are you? I told you to ask Peter for money. Emma's eyes reddened instantly. He won't help anymore. Then keep asking. You used to handle this stuff just fine. Emma finally snapped. Why is it always me? The other end went silent. Emma's breathing became shaky. For years I defended you to everyone. I stayed beside you no matter what happened. But what about you? When things go wrong, all you do is blame me. Ryan sounded stunned. Probably because this was the first time Emma had ever resisted him. Then his voice turned cold. So now you regret being with me? Emma's tears fell immediately. But this time, no one comforted her. Not Peter. Not fate. Not the plot. After a long silence she whispered, I don't know anymore. Click. The call ended. Emma sat there blankly, staring at her dark phone screen, like someone waking up from a dream. Meanwhile, at home that night, Peter walked out of the kitchen wearing an apron. Honey, he said seriously, I have important news. What? I successfully made soup without exploding anything. I stared at the perfectly normal bowl in shock. Peter looked incredibly proud of himself. Then he sat beside me and quietly added, also, Ryan and Emma broke up. I blinked. You knew already? Peter shrugged. In the original story, their relationship only survived because I kept sacrificing myself. Then he lowered his head slightly. If I had disappeared earlier, they probably would have fallen apart years ago. A year later everything had changed. Ryan and Emma became complete strangers to each other. After their breakup, Ryan still tried starting businesses over and over again, convinced he was destined to become successful like in the original plot. But reality didn't care about destiny. Without Peter cleaning up his messes, every investment failed within months. He fought with partners, lost money recklessly, blamed everyone except himself. Eventually, even his old friends stopped answering his calls. The last I heard, he was working unstable jobs while constantly talking about how people betrayed him. As for Emma, she finally stopped revolving her entire life around another person. At first she struggled badly. For years, she'd built her identity around being the devoted heroine who saved someone else. But once that illusion shattered, she was forced to grow up. She found a stable job, started supporting herself, stopped waiting for someone to rescue her emotionally. And slowly, she became calmer, more grounded. The dramatic love above all else mindset faded away with time. Sometimes people didn't need a happy ending together. Sometimes they just needed to stop dragging each other deeper. Meanwhile, Peter transformed into an entirely different species. The cold CEO aura was gone forever. Now he came home every day carrying grocery bags and asking things like, Honey, if I learn 3 new dishes, can I unlock husband achievement rewards? Or, the internet says married couples kiss before work for relationship stability. We should respect science. At first, I genuinely suspected he'd suffered psychological damage from awakening. But over time, I realized something. This was probably the real Peter underneath all the obsession and emotional self-destruction. Without Emma consuming the center of his life, without constantly sacrificing himself for people who took him for granted, he became lighter, warmer, human. One rainy evening, I was sitting on the sofa reading while Peter worked beside me. Suddenly he spoke without looking up. You know what scares me most? That sometimes I still remember the original ending. I closed my book quietly. Peter's voice was calm. I remember losing everything. My company, my family, my future. And in the end, even after all that, he laughed softly, I was still happy just because Emma smiled at me once. The room became quiet. Rain tapped gently against the windows. Then Peter turned toward me. But now when I think about it, I don't feel heartbroken anymore. He reached over slowly and intertwined his fingers with mine, because I realized something better was sitting right beside me the entire time. For once, there was no joking tone in his voice, no dramatic acting, just sincerity. I looked at him for a long moment, then asked quietly, "So what now?" Peter smiled. "Now, I spoil my wife. I protect our shared assets. I live a long life. And when those novel protagonists eventually regret everything." He leaned lazily against my shoulder. "I'll be too busy being happy to care." Outside, the rain continued falling softly. Inside, the world finally became quiet. No more tragic supporting character. No more forced plotline. Just two ordinary people, living an ordinary, peaceful life together.